I always remember Returnal as the most compared game ever. The reviewers just could not resist comparing it to every possible medium that they could think of. Statements like Returnal is control crossed. With Doom gameplay, it's got a remained from the ashy settings and it hates much more than Dark Souls gameplay. Loop, I mean, why stop there? What about movie compressions while you are at it, sprinkling some promotions and maybe a dash of Groundhog Day to while you are at it? For God's sake, cannot a game just be known for being itself, albeit some of those similarities might be true? I think Returnal deserves the recognition to stand on its own 2 feet. At its own entity, yeah, it's got similarities of other mediums out there, but so of a million other games that have failed massively in trying to execute them. The developers house Mercury do not fail in that regard. I mean, what do these people think that developers are doing, calling a meeting to brainstorm ideas about a potential game and coming up with the weirdest connections of gaming and movie references to make some super hybrid game of games. The appearance of a reindeer with the head of a market, the body of a walrus with the head of a sea lion with the body of all the porcupine. So the first thing that I noticed and loved about Eternal was the fluid mechanics and animations. The speed in which we glide through the world, leaping and dashing so seamlessly at a buttery smooth 16 frames a second. It's just a joy. I was almost taken for granted the impressive yet break surroundings, because I would suggest that you stop and smell the roses. But there are not any. That's not to say that this dark and gloomy environment is lacking any color, because during almost every enemy encounter it's so difficult not to get caught up in all of the dazzling symmetry before the harsh and demanding nature of Returnal reminds you that you are not here to say all of the pretty colors. Purple is the color of many pretty things from a like rain. The gameplay is unliterate, fast-paced, heart-pounding actions with an incredibly satisfying flow to every encounter and a wide variety of enemies, each with their own patterns of attack, and we are forced to learn them really quickly. The screen can be littered with a barrage of colorful bullet hellfire, similar to Housemarque's previous top-down games, but it's translated into a third-person action role fantastically well. Staying on the move, raking up combo kills to increase the adrenaline meter will provide temporary buffs with each level, meaning you can ill afford to even blink, and staying focused is essential. You will be utilizing a fairly small amount of base weapons, but each have an alternate flying mode, and they have been clearly implemented with the best use of the PS5 DualSense controller. To date, with half a trigger pull and full trigger pull giving such a tactical feel to the gameplay, but regarding a certain level of composure to not just aimlessly pull down on the trigger in the attempt to get yourself out of tricky situation. What about the story? I hear you cry. Well, it's a long story involving multiple deaths. We play as Celine who crash landed on planetary troops after disturbing escape. After your first death in the game, you will soon realize that death in your no escape death is the game never has a game death mechanic hooked me in so deep as Returnal has. It gets way beyond the joys of conquering of a gauntlet of enemies.